Welcome to the In Search of More podcast. I am your host, Ellie Nash. Join me weekly on my quest for more from myself and more from this world. We'll see you on the other side. All right, welcome, Donato.
Thank you, brother.
I'm sitting here with Donato Helbling, a Wim Hof certified level 2 instructor.
Yes, sir.
And the guy who gets credit for introducing me to the ice plunge. So.
Oh, man, it's my fault.
Yeah, it was probably 8-9 months ago. I had a podcast day, and that same morning I scheduled session with you, the breathing, the ice plunge, me and Mendel Labor. Mm-hmm. And right after that came into the podcast, and I saw the whole day went different. So after that I said, you know what, especially when I'm doing these podcasts, let me have a ice plunge sometimes in between them. And since then I do it every day that I'm here. And my wife's gotten into it. Pretty much anyone who comes visit.
They have to do it.
They don't have to.
It's encouraged.
But if they don't want me to talk to them about it nonstop, they're going to. And recently we did a men's retreat and had the ice plunge every single morning. A few of those guys have committed. So you introduced an evangelist for sure. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for being open to that, you know?
Absolutely.
There's so many people now doing it, and there's a lot of people buying their ice plunges, and then it just sits there. It's like, a lot of times people come to me like, I have my own ice plunge. I'm like, how often do you use it? So yeah, but I'm glad that it's made such an impact, and that you're inspiring others. I think the biggest thing, and I don't want to start your podcast by asking you a question.
Go ahead.
But what was, you said you did the plunge, and then you came here and it went different. Different how?
I felt like first energized, clearer, better mood, and completely refreshed. And it stayed with me for hours. I was like, hey, this is awesome. And then since then, oftentimes when I do these podcasts, I'll do a few in a day. So I get into a conversation and it can be really taking someone in.
Yes.
And then after that, sitting down with someone else, I feel like I need some sort of break.
Like a cleansing.
Exactly. And I've tried many different things, and nothing does it as quickly and as effectively as the ice plunge. 3 minutes in there, and the last conversation is washed off, and I'm prepared and energized for the next one.
There you go. If it's not magical. It's not magical. I'll give you an example. I like fun examples because I like illustrating a point in a radical way sometimes.
Okay.
Let's say that instead of you and I doing breathwork and ice baths, which is how we met. Imagine if you would have met me back in the day when I used to teach martial arts. And instead, I was out there and I would just beat the crap out of you in between one guy and the other, right? We would just get into a fist fight. 5 minute, like 3 5-minute rounds, right. MMA style. But, with big gloves on so you don't get hurt type of thing. You would come back reset too. Not maybe tired, of course.
Right.
But your head
maybe a little bruised.
But your head would be reset. And we were kind of toying with this idea earlier before we started that people struggle to stop. This is right now, I think, the biggest message that I could bring, and I'm so glad that you're giving me a space and a blessing to share this with people. And what I've learned, I've been doing the Wim Hof method practice with my breath work and my ice baths, and the training of my mind through that work. This has been my face now of my personal development for the last, I started in 2016, 2017. Cool. Right? Where before was Budokan with my yoga, martial arts, meditation. Mobility.
What do you call that?
Budokan. Budokan is the system that I've dedicated most of my career to as my own personal development, and also then as a teacher. Budokan is a system that my teacher created. His name is Cameron Shane, and we all together created an institution called Budokan University, where we teach martial arts, yogic arts, movement arts, and living arts. So we teach people how to move beautifully so that they can live a beautiful life too. And that's really built me into. I always credit Budokan as one of my major pillars of development in terms of who I am today as a man and as a person. And
But you moved from that to ice plunge.
Yes, I did. And
how did that come about?
I mean, I came from martial arts as a child, and as a young man. I played rugby growing up. I'm from Argentina.
Right.
I grew up a fat kid, so I couldn't play football, soccer. I couldn't play well. Therefore, I developed a distaste for our most popular sport. So I got into computers and into being a nerd, right? And that was cool. Then I moved to Venezuela to finish high school there. My family moved to my whole family for my father's career. And there I discovered rugby. And because it was kind of like my connection to my Argentinian friends in Venezuela, because in Argentina we play a lot of rugby. In Venezuela, not so much, but a lot of rugby clubs are in different cities in Venezuela, and they usually have some Argentinian or some Uruguayan or some Brazilian, someone South American running it, right? So it was kind of how I got into sports and into my physicality and into contact. And then when I moved to the U.S., I moved to Philadelphia to study electrical and computer engineering in Drexel University.
Oh, interesting.
And that's my formal education. Electrical. I say, if you want to know what you send your kid to school for, if you want them to end up doing something like this, you send them for engineering. So during university, I had the opportunity to finally explore martial arts because it's something that I always wanted and I always looked into as a kid, but more into the philosophical side. And then when I got into the US and I had so much access to so many different styles and so many great teachers, I started getting into all kinds of martial arts. Eventually, I discovered yoga, and then I moved to Miami. And right before I moved to Miami, I went to a jiu-jitsu tournament in Philadelphia and I injured my shoulder. And I used yoga to recover my shoulder, but then I fell in love with the yogic practice and the yogic path. And when I first moved to Miami, it was in 2005. It was a very special time for yoga in the US, but especially in Miami, because a lot of the really great American new generation teachers that are famous nowadays built their practice and their following here in Miami in mid 2000s. So I had the chance to train with the best of the best back in the day with Fred Bush, with Keno McGregor, with Stephen Herbst, who was the one that introduced me to Budokan, with he's not as big as I think he should be. He's freaking amazing. And with Paul Talicious, with all the local Miami big guys, right, that now tour the world and do all of that. I started in Philadelphia with Simon Park. So a lot of the guys that kind of made it big as yogis. Also with Terry Cooper. Terry Cooper, she's amazing. She's still local, but she did a lot of outreach with yoga. So I trained with some of oh man, how can I forget Joey Corona? He's still local. He's amazing. So these guys they also helped me discover me. What they did is this helped me discover my softer side. And then I found Budokan, which blended back in the day, in its original days. It was a practice that started in Hollywood as a thing that the celebrities did, because my teacher was like a celebrity trainer. And then he started taking it public. And I was one of the first people to do the practice and really fell in love with it because it was a mix of yoga and martial arts and movement overall, movement outside of the yogic structure or the martial arts structure, which had a little bit more of a performing arts feel to it. So it was very expressive, and that's actually what I really liked about martial arts, the artistic side, not so much the fighting side, not so much the martial, but more the arts side of martial arts, right? And it had a big philosophical component. For me, Budokan was beautiful because I remember when I took my first class, it was philosophy first. And it was about how what you're doing right now in the class is not important. It's just a thing that we do so that you get to the important part.
Which is?
Which is discovering who you are. and behaving as such instead of pretending.
Meaning you're using these techniques to learn about yourself.
Yes. Right. And I believe that every practice is like that, right? Like I believe that yoga done at a certain level is like that. Martial arts done at a certain level is like that. Meditation done at a certain level is like that. All of those things done at a surface level, they're just fun and they're great workouts, not meditation. but I think that they're good, right? And they're good intro. If you're curious and if you hear the calling, then you'll go deeper. And you'll see that, it's, I was having a really beautiful conversation yesterday with one of my good Jewish friends, and he was telling me the same thing. It's like, look, there's religion is a lot like that too, where at a surface level, it seems like it's this thing that kind of tells you how to live, but at a deep level, it really helps you discover deeply who you are, and it makes you look at sincerely how you want to live your life and make decisions based on that. So all of these things, all of these practices, all of these rituals, all of these systems, I believe have the power to liberate you as a person if you first are able to find yourself in them, right? So Budokan was the system that explained that to me, that said, this is not just some movements and some shapes and some kicks and punches. This is about what you do with your life. Because, and I tell this with people, it's like, there's going to be one situation in ever where being good at ice baths is useful, which is like if you're walking on a lake that's frozen and you fall through the ice and you don't panic, you know what I mean? Or if you sink in the Titanic, maybe it'll be useful. This being able to sit in an ice bath is not useful. What you learn about yourself in the discomfort of being in an ice bath is what I think is useful. And this is why now I teach breathwork and ice baths. Because I tell you the truth, I enjoy teaching Budokan a lot more than teaching breathwork and ice baths. I love teaching breathwork and ice baths. You've seen, you've felt how passionate I am about my work. If I have to just teach breathwork and ice baths, to me, that's just not that interesting. Movement is so much more interesting to me. It's so much more intricate, so much more nuanced, so much more complex, so much more different from one person to the other. But at the end of the day, I'm not teaching you movement. And at the end of the day, I'm not teaching you to sit for 3 minutes in a bucket of ice. I'm actually teaching you to look inside.
Right.
That's what I'm passionate about. That's the passion that you feel. Because to me, I get a chance to help you discover the most important thing, which is the most important person in your life. If you're not friends with you, you're going to suffer.
You were giving an example earlier about taking someone in a boxing match or a fight to 3 rounds, and that would reset their brain. And you're using that to explain something about ice plunge. Where were you going with that?
Yeah, with that is that what the ice bath does is it puts you in a state of shock. And when you're in a state of shock, nature takes over. See, because your thinking is too slow, right? We think that we think so fast because we're so cool, because we can answer emails, or because we can, post things on Instagram or whatever. But we're not that. We're not great at making decisions. We're not fast, for sure. Our autonomic nervous system, our limbic system, the middle part of our brain, is way better at that. Now.
Way better than our thinking part of the brain.
Oh, of course. At making life-saving decisions, absolutely. Right. The problem is that we rarely nowadays make life-saving solutions, right? Decisions, right? So when you get in a fight, or not if you're a professional or a seasoned martial artist, then you don't go into a panicky state. But if you're not, look, if you get into a car crash, you ever been in a car crash?
No.
No? Well, good, thank God. But if you ever are in a car crash or really close to getting to a car crash.
I've had that happen.
You've had that happen, right? Yes. When you're like, whoa, that was really close. Yeah. Whatever you were thinking about, gone. And whatever's coming next is brand new. You know what I mean? Because we need the touch with nature. You were asking me, is the work that you do a lot about touching with nature? Yes, it is. But not with nature like touching a tree or going to the woods. It includes that. But for me, going in nature, it also has to do with going into We are nature. We're an animal. We're part of nature. People forget that. The problem is that the way that we live our lives nowadays, the way that we think nowadays is tremendously unnatural. So while we cannot escape nature because we're made of nature, right? Like this thing that we live in is natural, right? And I do believe that our existence on this planet is a natural event. It could be tremendously spiritual if you want to go there, but before it's spiritual, it's definitely natural, right? Like you can see in nature that there's things that are alive, right? Yeah. So the fact that we're here is a very natural occurrence, and for us to connect with that nature, I believe is what's energizing. I think that when we connect with our nature,
meaning for us to connect to our own nature. Yes. That's what you're saying. It's not we're connecting to a tree, it's we're connecting to us being part of the natural part of nature.
Right. It's us, it's us forgetting that illusion that we were ever disconnected from nature. We cannot be disconnected from nature, right? The only way that you can be disconnected from nature is if you transfer your consciousness to some artificial brain or something, which, by the way, we're doing it every day with our phones, with social media, with investing more and more of our energy on a reality that doesn't exist.
But then at some point in time, you got to eat, you got to drink, you got to go to the bathroom, you got to sleep, and you're back to nature.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, if you ever go to the bathroom, like if you really need to go to the bathroom, and you're like, oh my God, I gotta go to the bathroom, If you go to the bathroom, man, boom, you're back in nature. Feels amazing. You come out of that energized. You come out cleansed. You come out feeling amazing, right? So what I like about teaching breathwork and ice bath, and kind of to bring it all back together, is that I believe all of these practices do the same. But breathwork and ice bath does it faster. And it does it more consistently. And it also does it with less equipment and with less time required. Therefore, it's easier to implement in a daily life. This is why you're able to do this practice in between each one of your podcasts, right? So you told me you're going to crank out 4 today, right?
I don't know if I'll do 4 ice plunges,
but what
I'll be in there probably at least
use it
once or twice, yeah.
Right, but see, if I said, okay, what I need you to do is to sit in meditation for a half hour and do a 1-hour yoga sequence, how many of those are you going to do in between podcasts? None.
Right.
None. But if I'm like sit in ice for 3 minutes, you'll do that because
100%.
you got 3 minutes. You don't have an hour and a half.
Right.
Maybe you should.
No, and it gets us there. It gets us there
quickly.
It gets you
there now, right? Because, but that's the thing. You can do this hour-long meditation or hour-and-a-half meditation, and it doesn't get you to your nature, maybe, but you get into the ice and you're going to snap out of it, right?
Does it still stay interesting for you 6-7 years later when you get an ice plunge?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I always tell people I still hate every ice bath, right? Which is really funny because that's the same thing that Wim says. It's like, I don't like going in there either.
Wim Hof says that?
Yeah. He's like, I hate the ice, man. Right? And I was like, that's probably just a publicity stunt when I first heard it. And now, 6 years in, I'm still like, every time I approach the ice bath, my brain's like, don't do it. Don't do it. Why are you going to do that? Nobody's watching you. Why are you doing it? You're not teaching. and it's okay. It's okay. That's what my brain's trying to protect.
But it definitely gets easier at different, I haven't gotten down to like 33, 34 degrees yet, but.
You know why it gets easier? Because you get better at it. Because what's beautiful about the ice bath and why I think cold plunging deserves a special place in these wellness practices. Deserves special attention, I think. And I do compare it to other wellness practices, other good maintenance wellness practices like martial arts, like yoga, like meditation. Where I think it's different is that you don't learn a useful skill. In the other ones, you kind of do. In sitting in ice, it's not so practical. It's not such a functional.
For me, though, it translates into a lot of different stuff. So if I'm in a tough situation, a tough conversation sometimes, I'll just in my head say, okay, I'm in ice plunge for 3 minutes. I can do that. It's this conversation, and any conversation I'm in is not as uncomfortable physically as that is.
Exactly.
So if I can hang out there, hang out here.
Right.
And for psychedelics, it's a part of my healing, a psychedelic healing. It's been one of the greatest teachers for me because sometimes during journeys, it's incredibly, incredibly uncomfortable. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm in an ice plunge,
Right. What I think that I think the similarity between, and I'm glad that you brought that up, because there's a lot of conversation about that, and there's a lot of people I feel like doing a lot of it, and maybe we'll talk about that a little bit. But what I think is beautiful and valuable about psychedelics and entering altered states of consciousness is that they force you to see that the way that you think is not the only way to think.
Yes.
Right?
It gives you different perspectives.
Right. It's like, I know that you're very sure about this. Well, take a look at this. Right? And you're like, wow. And the thing is that now that your consciousness saw that, your consciousness can no longer believe the story that this is true.
Right. It's not with the same certainty.
Exactly.
It's kind of, I think that.
Yes.
I like that. But it doesn't have the same absolute 100% certainty.
Exactly.
Right.
So the hard part of psychedelics is that integration into your rest of your life of that thing that you saw, and now going back to what you believed to be real for so long. If you don't have good guidance and good support in that reintegration process, I believe it to be, I think, and this is a complete opinion, this doesn't have to be the truth, that if you can't complete the journey, and the journey has to include going back home, going back to your daily life, and integrating what you learned to who you are in reality, then the journey is incomplete. And I believe, in my personal opinion and in my personal experience, that you're better off not going there, because it'll create further confusion, and it'll create further chaos, and it'll create further uncertainty, and it'll create further insecurity. But the opportunity is still there, right?
Right. I have to think about that.
And
it's not the way I did it, and
well, you probably did it right.
No, I said people who are serious about it are more offended by people who misuse it than people who don't use it. Meaning, someone who treats someone like the way I view psychedelics is as sacred, in the sense that I'm not talking about spiritual and holy and religious. I'm talking about that it's serious. It's a very, very serious practice. It's not, oh, hey, it's, why don't I try some mushrooms tonight?
Right.
No, let's plan it a couple weeks in advance. What are we doing? Who are we doing it with? Why are we doing it? There's something completely around it. From that perspective, someone who misuses it is more offensive to me than it was to me before I started using psychedelics. Meaning, yes, I believe it should be used in the appropriate ways. I have found sometimes, very often, is not in all cases, but that sometimes it corrects itself. Like, I did have a friend who was misusing mushrooms pretty seriously, and he came about it in a very, I guess, like, drug-induced way. Yeah, very recreational way. Right? He was trying other, a lot of marijuana. He was trying other drugs, and then said, hey, why don't I try some mushrooms? And had a couple interesting experiences. And I was standing back and saying, okay, where's this going to go? And my perspective was that it's incredibly healing. Yes. But on the other hand, I'm watching him do it sometimes twice a week. So hey, where's this going to go?
It's a lot.
And then one day he had that wake-up experience on it. And I was like, hey, this is not the way to use these tools. Like, this is not.
Yeah, it humbled him.
It humbled him, and then eventually got him on track. Will that work every single time? I'm not sure, but I see. The reason I'm sensitive to what you're saying is because I see many more people who could benefit from it, afraid of it, than I see people getting derailed by it. That's
okay. Well, I've seen both.
Okay, go ahead.
I've seen both.
I mean, I like that you're bringing to attention the fact that there's a
there's definitely
there's a risk, and there's
it's the same with ice baths.
Let's
just go back what you called me in for, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with ice baths. It's the same with nutrition. It's the same with a lot of things, because it's the same. It's humans doing it, right? And it's humans suffering from the same conditions, taking some first level problem solving ideas, which is like, I'm uncomfortable, let me make myself not uncomfortable.
Right.
And you just kind of like hold on to your little team and you do the thing and you hope that it's going to save you. And then later on it doesn't. Or later on, maybe it does. Where I think ice baths are cool, why I think psychedelics could be helpful, once again, it's because they snap you out of your unnatural thinking process and they bring you back to a natural thinking
100%,
process.
yeah.
Now, ice baths are a lot more violent than psychedelics. Fair?
Not necessarily, but I hear what you're saying. A lot quicker.
Well, what I'm saying is that you get in an ice bath, you're like, whoa, you're still here.
What?
Right? You're still here.
Right. The reason why it's ice plunge, if you're not liking it, jump out.
Exactly.
Right.
It's not like
psychedelics. You just gotta.
Psychedelics is like a roller coaster. Once you're on,
right.
you're going to the end.
Going, yes.
You know, like, but the ice bath, you can get out.
Exactly.
If you don't like it. Breathwork is
Same.
the same.
So breathwork
you
is the
can
same.
slow down. And this is why I like it better. Not personally, I mean, not only personally for me, but also for people.
There's less risks attached to it, 100%.
I'm not concerned about the risk.
Okay, go ahead.
Because if you're resorting to psychedelics or if you're resorting to breathwork and ice baths to fix whatever's going on up here, the risk is already there. You know what I mean? You're already in trouble, clearly. So I don't care about the risk. What I care more about is you feeling fully responsible for the healing and you being in complete creation of the healing experience. That's why I like breath work and I like cold exposure. This is why I like meditation even better, right? But meditation takes forever and the success rate is very small. Where I feel like breath work and ice bath combination is very successful, very integrative, and very, and a lot of people seem to be willing to do it. Where psychedelics, not everyone wants to
100%.
do it, and a lot of the people who seem to be doing it may not be guided properly also. There seems to be a bigger demand than supply, a demand for people willing to do it than supply of people willing to administer the medicine correctly.
So are you saying, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying. Yeah. You're saying that with breathwork and ice plunge and ice,
yes,
someone is less likely to attribute magical qualities to it, kind of get lost in the idea of it versus saying, hey, this is me doing the healing.
Right? It's like, if you're doing breathwork, you're doing breathwork. It's oxygen and your effort. Right? And then for the ice bath is the ice and you. That's it. I didn't do it. I take credit for none of the success of my clients because I didn't do anything. I just helped you not give up. Right? Psychedelics, you can't give up. You're going for the journey. So it's very hard for your brain. I know that there's a part in your brain that says, yes, but you're still a piece of shit because you didn't do anything. With the guy who goes to the psychedelics trying to cure the you're a piece of shit narrative.
Right.
If your brain is a little bit smart, it'll be like, you're still a piece of shit. That was just the mushrooms. Or that was just the LSD. Or that was just the ayahuasca. You didn't do shit. You're still the same piece of shit. When you're in Peru, surrounded by the guys and dancing around, that's fucking great. But when you come back home and you're looking at your wife in the face and your kids are two little terrorists, it didn't do anything. Because you don't believe it. Because you didn't do it. Right? I'm not saying that's the experience for everybody. I'm sure that people are that, hey, ayahuasca fixed my life. Who are you? I'm saying what I like about this work, what I like about the unassisted, the unassisted paths is that you get to, first of all, make the effort. Second, get the benefits.
Right.
And then there's an undeniable feeling of self-worth that comes from that because you
did it. Okay, I understand.
Every time you get out of that 3-minute ice bath, you come out, you're like, yeah, I'm a badass. Yes or no? Right?
Should I tell you what I got recently? I got the the snorkel to going underwater, and that was crazy.
And now you're like breathing under the cold water.
It was a different level of pain than I imagined was possible under there.
Right. So
there's ice plunge and there's ice plunge snorkel, and it's two different,
all different
things.
So for me,
I understand what you're saying. I'm kind of like yes to all of it.
Good deal.
But
I'm glad we're going kind of deep into the conversation, because by no means I want to sound like a guy that is not a proponent of that. I think there's a time and a place for all of that. I think there's value. I've experienced it myself. I have not seen tremendous benefit from psychedelics more than I've seen from breathwork and ice. And at the end of the day, man, I'm an engineer. And a good engineer is about efficiency. So for me, it's like, what's the minimum effective dose? How can I show up to work less? That's the way that I feel everyone should be thinking. How can I use less of my energy and create the same impact? Or how can I use the same energy and create a lot more of an impact? You, as you're growing the service that you're doing for people, you're coming to that question. How do I reach more people with these beautiful messages? How do I put people that can support my followers, I guess, or my audience with less effort? Right? Or maybe how much effort am I willing to put in to continue to create this thing, right? And to continue to be honest and continue to be myself in what I do. So for Donato Helbling, this guy in particular, I don't think psychedelics is the way, because I think it's too much to achieve what I want to achieve in my life, where I think the breathwork and ice baths has given me enough of support to create what I'm trying to create. And continue to feel honest in the way that I'm endeavoring in my life, and not pretending to be someone that I'm not. Oh, well, you're in the wellness space. Shouldn't you be microdosing mushrooms? No. Shouldn't you be doing this and that? And shouldn't you be, when I was a yoga teacher, a bunch of people are like, shouldn't you be vegan? And I'm like, no. No. Shouldn't you shut up? Shouldn't you stop judging me? Right? So it's like, I think that for us, and in the effort of going back to your natural state, what I think is really beautiful about humans, that maybe it's a little bit different than other creatures on Earth, is that we certainly have high potential for uniqueness, or for, or like having very different personalities and different ways that we show up in the world, right? Definitely a lot more potential for individual expression, right? And I think that in that, there's still a natural place where we should go back to, which is, how do we go back to who we really are, which most people haven't discovered that, right? Haven't even started discovering that, because we're always discovering that. But how can we go to our most natural, most honest state, and then express ourselves from there? When you tell me, I use the ice bath to snap me out of this conversation and get me into the next one, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
How do I go from being in an unnatural state, which is, I'm sitting here talking to you, but I'm still thinking about the guy that I was talking to before? That's unnatural. See, because it's not present.
Correct.
Right? I'm talking to you, then my mental activity should be focused on talking to you, not remembering what I talked about the other guy. You've noticed this pattern in your behavior, and you found that doing a cold plunge snaps you out of that.
It's also the feeling of it. Sometimes there's just a buzz that you still have.
It's a good feeling.
Not even a thought. It just,
Right. It's kind of like, okay, like I'm going to drink a little coffee because I like the feeling of the coffee, if that's what you like. Right. So
one thing I did find, when we did the retreat a few weeks ago, so we actually stayed away from any medicines.
Good.
The only medicine we used was hape, if you're familiar, the tobacco.
Of course.
Very grounding, good for meditation, etc. But we didn't use any psychedelics or any plant medicines.
Right.
And with several of the people, I noticed, so the way I think of it is everything is breathing. Everything. Our whole life is breathing. But we forget how to breathe. Yes. So then we need all these tools to remind us how to breathe. And what I loved about the ice plunge is that there were certain people who were unable to breathe. Meaning you gave them rapé, they couldn't breathe through the rapé. You asked them to breathe during the breath work, they couldn't breathe during the breath work. But in the ice plunge, the cold took over for the person. It breathed the person. I watched it happen in front of me, where the guy, you can't hold your breath because it'll force you to, right, exactly.
And you go like that. And then you're like, well, better stop breathing.
Yeah.
And they get it.
Yeah, the water just starts breathing them. And I was like, wow, this is so amazing.
If they stay.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
If they stay.
Some of them like, no, get me out of this. That's it.
Right, they jump. You know something? We did 3 minutes. We had 2 plunges. We started one 60 and 50 the first day, and the next day 50 and 40.
Beautiful.
And everyone whatever plunge they chose, everyone stayed in 3 minutes.
Beautiful.
It was wild to see.
That's probably because you created a beautiful space for that to happen.
It was like 16, 17 people all around.
Well,
you know,
the collective
like
ignition definitely plays a role there. But what I'm saying is that if people are in the right mindset, it's easy. It's easy to do. You know, yesterday we put 60 people at the same time.
60.
60 yesterday
right.
with an event that we did in South Beach, and nobody got out.
Nice.
Nobody got out. And it was cool. But it had a lot. I believe it had a lot to do with the space that you're holding as a master of ceremony. Let's call it. You know what I mean? As a facilitator, I guess. So you're probably creating a space that is conducive to that success and to that trust. What's beautiful about collective ignition, having a group of people, you know, is the reason why accountants finish marathons. I like to say it jokingly, right? It's like because the whole office is running the marathon. You know what I mean? It's like you ever done a marathon with a group of people? Or
we used to do stuff at the company where we did what are
like
they called?
Like a 5K or something like that?
Not only the 5K, we like the obstacle courses.
Oh, cool!
Together.
Like a Spartan race.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So cool. They finish it. They finish it every time. But that's because it's the whole office. If I take your accounting guy and just unleash him into the course alone, there's no freaking way he'll finish that.
Right.
No,
it's
the collective ignition that'll do it. You know this because you have your own ice bath.
And I see it all the time.
An ice bath by yourself is the loneliest thing ever. People are like, I'm going to buy my own ice bath. I'm like, come to class a few more times before you go spending the money. You know, because it's a lot, man. It's intense. It's intense, especially for how comfortable people are in life today. And the beautiful thing about the cold plunge, and here in Miami we have a specific thing. This is why I really believe that here in Miami we're creating a culture around cold plunges. It's a little different than in the rest of the cold plunging world, is that we don't have cold showers.
Right.
We don't have cold rivers. We don't have a cold ocean. We don't have cold lakes. So we don't have any other option other than a cold plunge or other than an ice bath. So what we don't have is the gradual exposure to the cold, which is what the Wim Hof method is all about, by the way. The Wim Hof method is breath work, mindset training, and gradual exposure to the cold, not ice baths. This is something that most people miss because if you saw a video of me taking a kind of cold shower, that's not a cool video to see.
Right.
But if you see me jumping into an iceberg, you're like, click like, right? So that's the one you're going to see more. But in reality, the Wim Hof method, and I think that the work it's outside of the Wim Hof method practice, if you choose to use exposure to the cold as your means of reconnection with nature, which is ultimately what I think is going on, then gradual exposure to the cold is key. This is why you did. I'm so proud that you actually did that. You said, I'm going to have a 60-degree one, and then a 50-degree one, and then a 50-degree one, and a 40-degree one.
Right.
And yeah, you did it in a 3-day period or a 2-day period, whatever. But what I'm saying is that you introduced them. Maybe you didn't know you were doing this, but you actually did it correctly, which is you took them through a journey of gradual exposure to the cold, which allows them to build up their confidence, which, by the way, if you're running a men's retreat, what you're actually doing is teaching this young man, or maybe not so young, to be confident in their own self, right? Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, a women's retreat teaches the same thing. Mm-hmm. If you've ever been to one, they're amazing. So, because they're a lot nicer at telling you the same thing, which is like, you're okay. You're amazing. You're beautiful. We love you. Right? Right? We do it different. We're like, get in an ice bath. See, you're a badass too. Like, we're a little different about that. But
we're saying the same thing.
But it's the same story, because at the end, we're all suffering of that because we forgot how beautiful we are. We forgot how amazing we are. We are a part of God at the end of the thing. Right? So it's like, if that's what we're all about, right? Then then how can you not be amazing? How can you not trust that? How can you not trust this miracle, right? But we don't, because we're taught not to, because because our brain gets really good at that. Gets really good at questioning how amazing we are, because I guess that's this lifetime, right?
Right. If there was a scientist who can create something with 1% of the capabilities we have, we'd be blown away.
Yeah. I think that's kind of,
it would be the talk of town.
That's a little bit like, well, that's a little bit what we're trying to do with AI, right? We're like, all right, humans are too inconsistent. Let's just make a computer that thinks. Right? We've been after that for a while now. So to me, all of these practices, and I'm a big fan of what's happening right now.
What do you feel like is happening right now?
What's happening right now is that it's what happened to me when I moved from South America to the U.S., right? I was interested in martial arts. And in this little town in Venezuela that I lived, there was like one guy, and I didn't like him. So I didn't get to train martial arts, right? But when I came to the U.S., there were so many. And they were good, because there's so many that you better be good, right? Because if not, you're going to go out of business. So now you're like, okay, so I had all these options, and I was able to find my path until I got into Budokan, and now I am where I am, right? I feel like in the wellness world, or in the healing world, there's two things happening at the same time. Number one, there's more offer than there's ever been. Mm-hmm. With that comes a quality issue too. It's like there's more offer than ever, but maybe most of it is not of the quality that you would need to really create wellness. There's definitely a lot of movement in the wellness industry in terms of revenue and profits, but I don't know if it really is in results and actual wellness being produced. But if you are right, what I like that's happening right now is that there's all these availability, and then there's this definitely huge demand with everything that's been going on and how crazy the world is right now, and how we keep listening to it and we keep investing in technologies that tell you how crazy the world is every day. I want to know what it's like in the middle of the war zone, right? I don't, because I don't need to. But we are so interested in knowing all the problems of the whole universe that we're in big need for nature.
Right.
And I believe that these wellness practices do have the ability to reconnect you with nature, and to bring you to bring you to this centered space where you can then be mentally present, right? Really be here, be in this moment, and make decisions for what's really happening in your life, instead of what you think is happening in your life, or what you think should be happening in your life, or what society tells you must be happening in your life, even though it's not. So
what was that like for you, the decision to go from engineering after working through a degree and everything else, then saying I'm going into to wellness? As a profession, not as a personal interest.
As a profession, it was a big deal. This was one of the biggest decisions of my life. And I think that being in Miami did that for me. I'm so glad that I was in Miami, because if I would have been somewhere else where my career was more interesting, maybe I would have been more into my career, right? So as an engineer in the 2000s in Miami, there wasn't so much to do other than, because there's no manufacturing really in Miami. There weren't a lot of tech companies in Miami back then. So a lot of the work that I did was industrial automation, mainly in infrastructure projects. So I did a lot of water pumping more than anything. Like, the Miami airport floods every day. How are we going to fix that? So we came up with that. The Florida Keys runs out of fresh water. How are we going to fix that? So I worked in projects that solved those issues. The Florida aquifer is getting salt water in it. How are we going to fix that? Okay, let's fix that. So these were big questions and big problems that are super interesting to fix as an engineer. But then that's it, right? It's not like we're inventing rockets. We're not doing, we're not making robots. That's not happening in Florida. We're inventing the next party drug, maybe. But I'm not a chemist. You know what I mean? So my job was a little boring. It was getting a little And then as I got deep into my practice and I started sharing what I know and I started teaching, I started getting a lot of fulfillment from that. I started getting a lot of fulfillment from helping people feel better, from helping people be happier, from helping people discover who they are. And to me, that's tremendously fulfilling. And as an engineer, it's tremendously intriguing too. Because the main reason why people suffer is because they're pretending to be someone that they're not. The machine is the same machine from person to person, right? Like you have a human body with a human brain, right? And he has the same thing and she has the same thing, right? How come the same machine produces different problems, right? And how can I teach this person that lives inside of this machine to use this machine the way that this machine was designed to be used efficiently and sustainably, right? I always compare it to a race car. The best race car drivers are mechanics because they know how the machine works, so they can drive it harder, so they can push it to the limit without breaking it, right? And they can get the most performance out of it. So my job ultimately is to share with people the things that I've learned about how this machine works. When this machine is working fine, then you, right? There's you and then there's that meat bag, right? Or this meat bag, right? And then there's you who wakes up in this meat bag every day. I don't know how to explain that, and I'm not gonna dedicate.
You call it a soul and a body. That's fine.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't do that too much, just to make sure that they don't get too separated. Right. I purposely keep them unidentified, so that I
fine.
Don't
it's whatever words people put inside.
Right?
Yeah. The fact that we have consciousness.
Yes.
That we are conscious of ourselves and we're not just...
Yeah, we have awareness, right? Self-consciousness, right?
Exactly.
Self-awareness, right? So it's really interesting that that's there. I think that maybe...
So it's the one who has awareness and the us.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
So we're working with that. I'm helping, and I think that being an engineer helps me understand this system, right? Because now it's really a system, right? Is this biology and this spirituality as a system working together, right? Is like in an automation engineer, what we do is we take a mechanical machine and a computer and make the computer drive the mechanical machine. Right? This is similar in the sense that there's something driving this machine, and then there's this machine, but then there's this part of the machine that can drive itself, right? And then there's the environment interacting with the machine and with the thing. And so to me, all that system and all of that is the most fascinating engineering challenge there is. So when people are like, are you retired as an engineer? No, I'm
still
doing
trying
it
to
right
figure out
now.
the machine. Yeah.
I just didn't send you a bill for engineering. I'll send you a bill for engineering, for wellness services.
Right.
Makes sense. So this is really cool because understanding it at that level has helped me create wellness programs for different brands.
So you're saying thinking how the body works and understanding that better will help our minds work better.
Well,
help our spirits, help our moods.
I think I didn't say that, but what I'm saying is that if you understand what you're working with, right, then you can get more out of it, right? And if you become very clear about what you want to do while you're here, because we all got like 100 years on Earth or something. If you just decide what goals you have, what values you're going to live by, and what lifestyle you're going to have to sustain these two, then you can make some beautiful decisions, and you can express yourself honestly, and you go into a journey of endeavoring and feedback. This is the basis of integrative living. The practice, my main practice that I teach
is integrative living.
Now, integrative living is the concept that I teach for people, which breathwork and ice baths and martial arts and meditation and yoga, all of those are practices within the system for me. They're practices that help you discover a little bit more of who you are. They're either movement practices or mental presence practices or proper nutrition practices or harmony with environment practices or rest and relaxation practices or fun practices, right? So these are the 6 fields of human endeavor, and you go there and endeavor and you get the feedback, right? So for example, you're like, you know what? I'm called to share my story. So I think a TED Talk is going to be a great platform for that, right? You didn't know that to be true. You just thought that. Right? Then you went and you did it. And then you endeavored. And the feedback in your case was awesome. Hey, man, I heard your talk and it helped me face my reality. And thank you so much. I can't believe it. And you're like, and I was hiding that the whole time.
Right.
So now you're like, so the feedback was like, hey, Ellie, maybe what you have to share is valuable. How about you go sharing some shit? Right? So you're like, okay. And you're like, okay, maybe, well, I did the talk. So how about a podcast? Right? And you did the podcast. And here we are. Maybe you did a podcast and the podcast was a complete dud. People were like, no. And then maybe your community were like, we don't do podcasts, so get out of that thing, or we're going to kick you out. And you're like, oh, shit.
So you endeavored, you got the feedback.
You endeavored, you had feedback, and you discover you ultimately get to know you.
Right.
That entity that we're talking about gets discovered by endeavoring and feedback. Perhaps that's why we're here. Perhaps that's why we are given a 100-year chance to endeavor. And this is why every wellness practitioner or facilitator or teacher or a high-level master will be like, shut up and listen to your life. Listen to what's happening and see if you like it. And if you don't like it, you better stop doing it.
Right. Do something else.
Do something else. But what should I do? That's not my job. My job is to remind you to shut up and listen. Right? Pick any.
Shut up and listen to yourself.
Listen to life.
Right.
Listen to life. And then life or the universe or God or whatever.
Right. It's all coming to us in a variety of different ways.
Just go and push against it and see what it does.
Right. Someone can listen to 2 hours of this conversation and there's one line that sits there reverberating with them for a while. So listen to that one.
Yeah. Yes.
Why is that sitting there?
Well, and that's the feedback that life is giving to you, and the feedback that's given to you, and the life that's given to you. You know, it's different for all of us. But the idea is that yes, we're here endeavoring and hopefully picking up on the feedback. The people who are trapped in a cycle of suffering is usually, I'm not going to say 100% of the cases because I haven't seen them, but it is usually because life is giving them feedback and they're ignoring it.
And they're resistant to it, yes.
They're ignoring it and they're continuing to move in a dishonest way. Right? Move.
Yes.
Actions, words, projects, time and energy spent in a dishonest way. What the dishonest way is that it's not for you. Maybe it's for another one. Maybe another person doing exactly that thing would be the happiest person on earth and get the most amazing results. But not you. So maybe you want to adjust that. But sometimes we're like this, or sometimes we're like, screw it, I'm doing it anyways. And sometimes in the screw it, we're doing it anyways, there's some power in that. Sometimes in the I'm not going to listen to you, I'm just going to keep going. There's some power in that. But a lot of times there isn't. A lot of times everyone's telling you, dude, you should do it, and you don't. and there we are. And then that's when other things may snap you out of it.
Yes.
You know?
This is why I use religion as a bad word, even though I'm pro I'm pro spirituality and I'm pro a lot of religious ritual and ideas and being part of that. But religion as a word, my definition of that is that we take an action and we ignore feedback that comes back to us. Meaning I am doing this regardless of any feedback that comes to me. And I think we all have that with certain things where we'll say, I'm going to be a good person, let's say, no matter what feedback I get. Or I'm going to focus on supporting my family no matter what feedback I get. I have to do that. So, okay, there's room for a few of these religious beliefs, but sometimes they become so excessive and take up all areas of our life where breathing, can I do that? I don't know if that's consistent with my religion. I don't know if, can I check with this on is this okay? Can I offer my kids something like this? Is that consistent with this religion? And all of these ideas, what ends up happening is we can create massive amounts of destruction, ignore all of the feedback and all the feedback that's coming to us, and just say, hey, we're moving forward with this. And while, like you said, there is power in doing that with a few things, but when someone is taking a lot of ideas in that way and then creating, I see it all the time, creating massive amounts of destruction in their life, their children's life, their family's life, and you say, why are you doing this? And essentially what it often comes down to is a religiously held idea, which has nothing to do with religion necessarily. It could be a religiously held idea on anything.
It's an ignoring to repeat what you said so elegantly, it's ignoring the feedback.
Correct.
There
is no feedback loop. Nothing. There is no feedback
you're completely
loop. Nothing,
disconnected from
right.
it.
Nothing will change.
Because your feedback is by the structure prescribed thinking pattern.
Right. It's what Einstein calls, what is attributed to Einstein is insane. Right? You keep doing the same thing no matter the results. Right.
Right.
There is no feedback loop.
There's no feedback loop. The feedback is the teacher. The feedback is the message. The feedback is the calling. The feedback is the download. The feedback is the thing that you got to be paying attention to if you want to discover who you are. I truly believe that the only reason why humans are the only animal that has religions is because we're the only animal that can afford disconnecting from feedback. And notice that humans in nature are not religious.
Right.
Right? So even it's not humans are religious. Humans that have disconnected themselves from nature have the luxury of being religious because they have built structures around them to keep nature away. Now, are they happy? I don't know.
Well, you have some that use nature as part of their meaning you can arrive at it different ways. So if you take like the American Indians, which I've had the opportunity to interact with a number of them recently. So a lot of they won't even use the word religion. But a lot of what their practices are and their rituals are around preserving nature.
Well, their rituals and their practices are designed so that their people don't forget the importance of nature.
Exactly.
All religion, all rituals are created so that people remember something.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Like Shabbat is just slow down for a second, right? Or whatever it is. Like every ritual has a reason. On Shabbat,
in the Bible it says, remember that God has made this day holy. Like that's what we're doing.
Right? So the rituals have an intention created by the leaders of the community remember something that's valuable to the community. Turns out that in this case, the Native American tribes, they valued nature a lot.
Right. And they realized how a lot of that is getting disrupted.
So they have the rituals.
Then they started fighting harder and harder for it.
Right. And hey, anyone who has their ideals and somebody comes to fuck with them will fight against it. We're seeing it right now, and we've seen it every time there's been humans, because we're the only ones with ideals anyways, right? But what I was saying is that humans are the only ones that created religion because we're able to disconnect from nature. Because nature, if you don't listen to the feedback of nature, you die, right? If you hear a growling noise in the bush and you're like, I'm the coolest guy on earth, you're about to get eaten by a lion. Right? Nature, you don't get to reproduce, right? But in our societies right now, you can be completely out of your mind and you can pop 3 babies and raise them to be crazier than you and more disconnected from nature than you. And here we go, right?
And somehow survive.
Of course they'll survive because we built a castle around us that keeps nature away. But it's not free, right? You won't survive if you're poor. You won't survive if you don't have money, right? So it's an interesting thing. I don't want to go down that crazy rabbit hole, but the idea here is if you want to be a happy, healthy, strong human, you have to forget this craziness that you're not a walking piece of nature.
You have to
forget this illusion.
Oh, the illusion.
The illusion that tells you that somehow you're outside of
right.
nature.
There is nature and there is us. I'm going into nature.
No, we're not going into nature. Right. Right? We never left it. What we are is engaging in unnatural behavioral patterns. This may sound semantic, by the way, but this is why, people are like, oh man, I can't wait to go to your project in North Carolina. I can't wait to go to a retreat. I can't wait to Peru. I'm like, you don't have to. You're here. You're in nature already. You can do the work right now if you want it. Like if you're ready, we can work right now. This is why I like the breath work and the ice baths, because you can do the work right now.
Right. So let me ask you about those two things.
Yes.
breath work. You always say breath work and ice plunge.
Yes.
So breath work without ice plunge and ice plunge without breath work. Can you separate?
Oh, it's like peanut butter without jelly, my friend.
Okay, so explain.
Well, you know, I say, you know, but I'll tell you what. Do you like peanut butter and jelly?
I do actually.
You do? Okay, but if you're going to have one, which one is it?
If I was at one, which one is it? Probably peanut butter. I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so you're a peanut butter guy, not like a spoonful of jelly guy. Good. So for me, the peanut butter is the breath work. Right? Together they're better. But if you're going to have one, the breath work. And I think it has a lot to do with, well, first of all, the results I've gotten from it. So I'm biased. The breath work was profoundly impactful for me.
When you're talking about breath work, you're talking specifically about Wim Hof breath work or breath work?
I really like Wim Hof breath work.
Yeah.
I really do. Like, I really like Zen meditation. I really do. I really like Budokan yoga. I really do. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, it's, you know, it's, I have my own flavor that I really like,
right.
You know, so I'm very biased by that because I've seen the most results in that, and this is what I teach. But I do believe that having awareness of the most basic human function is very valuable, right? Because you're like, whoa, life is getting complicated with everything that the world in this, you know, in this unprecedented times, right? Going back to the most absolute basic thing we ever done, which is breathing.
Breathe, yes.
And being like, all right, let me stop paying attention to what's going on the other side of the planet, right? I hate you, right? And just let me focus on what I'm supposed to be doing to be alive, which is number one, breathing. There's got to be something there, man. I'm putting my money on that. That this is why I believe breath work to be so powerful. Now, there's a lot of different breath work practices. I just really think that anything that connects you, and this is why sometimes people are like, okay, so you're telling me that at any time I should just stop and do 3 rounds, 40 breaths, 3 breath holds, you know, incremental breath retention. Now, that's the practice, right? What you just did, where you just went,
right.
Yes, right? One of my favorite students is a pro tennis player. And she told me one day, Djokovic does the same thing you do. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, anytime I ask you a retarded question, you take a big breath and you don't yell at me. when the journalist asks him some freaking question that he doesn't want to answer, he always takes a giant breath and then compassionately answers. But you know that somehow, and then somehow the journalist gets the energy that he shouldn't go there, right? And I think that that's what you're doing with your ice baths. You're going there to check in, to snap out, to reconnect, to be like, but you just felt it. You can do that with one breath.
Right.
If you have a breath practice, right? A martial artist can end a fight with one punch, but that guy knows how to throw a punch.
Right.
You know, because most people will start a fight with a punch, not end it. Fair?
Yeah.
Right? So a good breathwork practitioner will snap out of this unnatural thinking and reconnect with their nature, or with nature, with one breath. I found Wim Hof method breathing to be the most effective at that because, and only because, it is the easiest to implement in your daily life and still perform your daily life. Right? Because
it's 10 minutes.
It's 10, 15 minutes, 12 minutes,
right.
15 minutes, whatever. It doesn't take that long. And also, you don't get so out of your mind that you can go back to what you were doing. You can't do holotropic breath work and then join the 9 a.m. Zoom call. Is it amazing? Absolutely. But does it take a lot to come back from it? Yes. Wim Hof, you just do it in 5 minutes, you're 100%.
Right.
You're 110%, right? Like you're feeling a little better maybe.
Right.
So for me, it's in
So your breath work plus ice plunge.
now breathwork and ice baths are, I believe, the cocktail, right? I like drinking. I like alcohol. I think it's actually one of my intoxicants of choice. In the sense, I believe that in the realm of proper nutrition, there's micronutrients, macronutrients, and intoxicants, right?
Okay.
There's the proteins, the fats, and the carbs. There's your micronutrients, your vitamins and your minerals, and then everything else that poisons your body, right? Like a beautiful lean grass-fed steak will be high quality protein, very little fat, no carbs, no toxins, right? A commercial steak will be whatever, a bunch of fat that's full of toxins and some protein, but really hard to digest and all of that, right? We all would like to, at some point in our lives, maybe participate in intoxicating our bodies. If you're doing a medicine journey, that's what you're doing, by the way. You're intoxicating your body. You're introducing something that your body has a tremendous reaction to, fair?
Some yes, some no, yeah.
Maybe you don't want to call it a toxin, but that's what I'm calling toxin.
Right.
Something
No,
that
I hear what
comes
you're
in,
saying. Yeah.
something that comes in not to regenerate your cells or to feed your, but it definitely does something to you, right?
Yeah.
So for me, alcohol is one of those that I enjoy. I enjoy the flavor of it. I'm also I'm a bit of a foodie. I like food and I like cocktails. I like those things. I like abusing them.
Right.
I like using them as a celebratory elixir, perhaps. And there's a difference between drinking a shot and drinking a cocktail. Right? What I like about the ice plunge is like a shot. It hits you. It's undeniable. You're gonna feel it. It's good. It hits. It's there.
Right.
You want to get the effect of this thing? Skip the cocktail. Take the shot. Right? You want to get the party started? Shots.
Right.
Right? You want everyone to stop thinking about the office? That's why happy hours.
Right. Shots.
The guy's like, all right, round of shots. This is
Right.
that's see for the experience how everything makes sense. To me, all of it has to be an experience, right? The goal and the values around it is what changes, right? So for me, the ice bath is the shot, where the breath work is the cocktail.
Understand.
Right? It's like you get to experience it. You have to work more for it. You have to savor it. You have to take more time. The other one's bam. But you know my favorite drink? A beer and a shot.
The beer, the shot in the beer?
No. Just the beer next to the shot. Like an old cowboy drink. Give me a beer and give me a bourbon. Right? A beer and a whiskey. I just enjoy that. And for me,
So that's your breath work and your...
to me, that's the breath work and the ice bath, or the peanut butter and jelly. It completes it. It's a much more profound experience. What science has shown is that if you do breath work, the effects last 24 hours. If you do an ice bath, the effects last 6 hours. If you do them together, the effects last up to 6 days.
Wow.
Right? This is why people are like, should I do ice baths every day? At the beginning, yes. So that you build a practice and so that you get the mental benefit that you get from the resilience training. And you also build a constant discipline in your practice. But ultimately, I think 3 days a week is good, especially because, well, that science thing that tells you it lasts 6 days. So you're riding the high peaks of the wave. So that's nice. And also, I don't believe in daily practices. I don't believe in every day the same practice once you're a seasoned practitioner of a practice. At the beginning, it's absolutely necessary for you to train daily, to work the basics, to get good at it. And then I think that the intermediate to advanced practitioner requires a break for integration of the lesson learned in the nuanced parts of the practice. So for me, 3 times a week is good. Now, let's say that you are doing podcasts. Well, maybe you add that week because you know that you're going to do more. Like if I'm going to go fight a tournament tomorrow, I'm not going to eat the same as if I'm going to go on vacation tomorrow, right? So to me, practices are part of proper nutrition, right? It's also the things that you do that feed you for you to exist and express yourself. Does that make sense?
Makes 100% sense. So let's make this, I mean, you've made it practical. Let's make it a little bit more. For those in Miami, there's the Miami Ice Club, which you run.
Yes.
Right. Around 50-something in Biscayne.
Well, we have 3 locations now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we have a location in Miami Beach, in South Beach. We have a location in Little Haiti. That's our headquarters, the Miami.
That's one I was
headquarters.
at. Yeah.
That's the one that you went to. And then we have another one in Broward in Pompano Beach.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so we're looking at a few more locations. We're looking at a South Miami, and we're looking at a Brickell location because there's a lot of people there that
really
do
cool.
the work. And I'm doing a teacher's training at the beginning of next year to create a little bit more people that know how to do the work that we do. At the Ice Club, we do a lot of Wim Hof method breath work.
Right.
I do a lot of Wim Hof method breath work because I'm the one that trained with Wim. A lot of the people that work with me have trained directly under me, which I don't teach them the Wim Hof method. I teach what we teach at the Ice Club, which is not the Wim Hof method because it doesn't follow the protocols of the Wim Hof method. It's a little bit different. And also we're not breath work, gradual exposure to the cold, and mindset training. Our pillars are different. We have breath work, ice baths, right? Not gradual exposure to the cold, and community. To us, the community is the healing part, and this is the part that you're never going to get out of the ice bath that you buy for your house.
Right.
Right? Unless you're building your little community in your house.
No, so we saw a lot of that with the retreat. It was something that I benefited a lot personally from the retreat, is seeing how the community coming together gives a different oomph to the healing.
It definitely makes the experience.
For someone not in Miami, how do you recommend they go about this? If they're interested, they heard what you're saying.
So I do the Ice Club. And then I also do my integrative living programs.
Right.
I do something called the integrative living sprint, where I take 4 or 5 people in a 2-month coaching and educational sprint, where in 2 months you learn the concept of integrative living, and I coach you one-on-one. The reason why I take 4 or 5 people is that because it's the only honest way that I can do that. And
do 4 or 5 together or 4 or 5 individually?
There are 4 or 5. In the same course, right?
Got it.
So together. So even though the educational part is a lecture that they're all in it together, and they're mostly online, like a conference call, and then I work one-on-one individually with each one of those 4 or 5 people, in helping them apply integrative living concepts to what they're going through in their life and their specific goals for this particular sprint. Because I have people that come back to another sprint to work on another thing about their life, but they have to sit through the lectures again, and then they realize that they learn other things that they didn't pick up before. So that program is available to people who don't live in Miami, because we can do the coaching calls online. And it includes some daily rituals that people have to do to really cement the practice, their practice, and it includes breath work, and it includes cold exposure or ice baths if you have them, and it includes movement training, and it includes proper nutrition, and it includes, more than anything, doing a lot less. During my integrative living sprints, my students are not allowed to be on social media. They're not allowed to read books. They're not allowed to listen to podcasts. They're not allowed to consume any information. They're not allowed to watch the news. I make some exceptions if your career absolutely depends on it, and you better convince me, and I'm pretty hard to convince. But because the information that comes in the course is a lot, and you need the time to integrate it. It's a lot of reality checks, and it's a lot of looking at things that a lot of people don't want to look at.
Right.
But the ones that do but in 2 months, they're living a completely different life.
Awesome.
It's really cool. It's really fulfilling work for me to see people change so much. Right. We used to do them 3 months long, but they were already done by month 2.
Right.
So I was like, all right, let's shorten this. And by month and a half, they were already well on their way. So the last month became this weird, like this momentum that got lost. So now I shortened it to 2 months, made it a little bit more intense, and it's really beautiful work. And then so people who are not in Miami can jump in those things. I do a lot of traveling and public speaking and workshops. I'm going back to doing a lot of that. I haven't been doing that for a bit. I'm doing a lot of that. So I bring a lot of Wim Hof.
If someone wants to see where you have DonatoHelbling.com.
DonatoHelbling.com.
Right. I came across you on Instagram, actually.
What's that?
I said I came across you on Instagram.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. if you're in Miami and you want to come to the Ice Club, it's miamiiceclub.com or the Instagram. And if you want to see what I do outside of the Ice Club, then it's donatohelbling.com. I don't answer I don't look at my Instagram profile. I'm very bad with social media. I'm very sensitive. My brain gets distracted very fast. Right. And social media is just too good at distracting me. So
I think we connected on email.
I think we did. I think you probably find me there, send me an email, and then boom. So if you send me an email, I'll answer it, and I'll be very present with that. With social media, I don't know.
Not so much.
But people can find me through there, and then reach out like in the link, and it's really cool. I'm making some changes on that. I have some people now helping me with the social media so that I can get out a little bit more. But I do a lot of traveling. I'm doing a lot of. I have a retreat coming up.
Oh, cool.
In North Carolina. That's February 29th. To March 3rd. So it's 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And it is a Wim Hof and integrative living retreat. I'm doing that in North Carolina. Beautiful. We're going to spend one of the days of the 3 days in Six Fields in the property that I'm developing, in the wellness resort and community that I'm building over there. Because right now we're just in the early stages, so we don't have places to go. So we're having a really nice house nearby. And we're going to be spending a lot of time in nature, doing a lot of breath work, doing a little bit more advanced breath work. And doing cold exposure in nature.
Neat.
Instead of being in a bucket of ice, we're going to go to waterfalls. We're going to go to rivers and creeks. North Carolina is one of my favorite places in the world. This is why I committed to my next phase of my life to be there, and the water there is
spectacular.
Oh my God, man! And it is cold. It is cold, and there's something about a cold plunge. There's something about jumping in a river, but there's something also about hiking to a place and then getting in it, getting in the water there. It is so, I feel like it's such a complete and integrative experience. And
I guess there's something about nature.
I feel in that sense, it is a lot like what we talked originally earlier in our conversation about psychedelics. It's like, are you seeing this? You can't not see this, right? When you hike for 45 minutes and then come to an amazing waterfall and they get in it, I don't care how strongly you think you're not part of nature. When you're in there,
you will feel it.
You're home. And there isn't a person that I haven't taken to nature that hasn't felt it. And it is so simple. When you think about it, you're just like, just shut up, walk in there, walk into the water. You walk into the water, you're like, oh my God, there, boom. So it is really beautiful to take people in those. So the retreat's coming up. I'm going to start doing more of those to give that. Awesome. So a lot of people can jump into that. And then I do a lot of traveling for corporate team building events. Right now, there's a big push for wellness in the workplace.
A lot, yeah.
Thank God, right? Because before it was like, you work for me, I pay you, so shut up and type emails, right?
So how do you bring ice plunges there? How does that work?
Yeah, we do. We bring out the logistics for ice plunging,
oh, cool.
Wherever it may be. And it's really cool because sometimes we go to places where like, there's a lake nearby. We go to a lake instead of a cold plunge. Right. That'd be cool. Or sometimes there isn't. So we bring tubs and we bring ice and
that's cool.
We do that. But more than anything, I teach people the breath work and I teach people all these things that we've been talking about. Kind of like the first introduction to it, right? We kind of went a little deep today, but more about how you can look at yourself and treat yourself better, and how it doesn't really take that much. A lot of people, especially if they're struggling at work, is because work is so intense that they have this story that they don't have time or they don't have the energy to take care of themselves. What's beautiful about, once again, breath work and ice baths is that it doesn't take much time and it doesn't take much resources. If you do not live in the tropics, right? Then you open your shower and there's an ice bath coming out of it.
Yeah, I was in New York for the summer. Property was on a well. I would fill it up right from the well water and it was cold enough. wasn't
Definitely
freezing,
cold
but it was cold enough. It was a
Yeah,
cold
but
plunge.
if you take a cold shower, it's
Yeah.
definitely cold enough.
Yeah, up
Come to
northeast
North
it is.
Carolina in the winter.
I'm sure it
it's
is.
more than cold enough.
Yeah, sure it is.
If you live anywhere where the pipes freeze, you think that's not enough?
Yeah.
They're enough to
Good.
freeze your pipes. That's how cold it
Yeah,
is.
it's really only here we need those things.
So
So what do you
it's
say
okay.
we do that? The first time I worked with you, you gave me a lot of tips that I still benefit from and showed others. So I'd love if you
We do
were willing
another?
to observe again. If you want to join, by all
round
means.
two?
Around two.
Around two. Let's do it, brother.
All right.
Oh, I love
Thanks so
that.
much. I appreciate you coming out. I appreciate the original initiation and invitation to experience your medicine.
Thank you
And
so much.
grateful to share it with the few people individually in my life and now with the larger community.
Thank you so much.
Thank
brother.
you.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.